Well, hello to the flipped classroom. Let's go. Boom. You wake up one day and all of a sudden, yes, that's right, you are part of the government. I know, crazy, crazy. I wouldn't have expected it either. Really wouldn't have expected it, but it happened. So, boom, now you're a leader. All right, and basically your job is to either say yes or to yeet laws out of existence. All right, so you can either say yes or no to any kind of laws. But your job is to protect the plebeians. All right, so you really don't want to hurt the plebeians at all. You want to help them out. Okay, so let's say one day the city that you're at, the city that you kind of were elected to, okay, makes this law against the plebeians that's going to hurt them. All right, you have two options here. All right, and you may think, oh, this is going to be easy, but it's really not. It's a hard question to it's kind of stuff they dealt with. Okay, either one, all right, you say yes to the law, and you hurt the plebeians, but you can further your You either say yes to the law, all right, as I was rudely interrupted, and you can further your political career, or you say no to the law and you stop any further expansion onto your political career. Whether you say yes or no, that is up to you. If you say no, obviously it's going to hurt you politically. If you say yes, it's going to hurt you with the plebeians. So that's a decision you have to make. What do you do? So in 400 BC, all right, the Roman plebeians started to get really unhappy about all the stuff that was happening to them. They're like, we want more stuff. Give us more. Don't tax us as much. All right, and so the idea is the patricians are like, ooh, we don't want them to get too mad because they're going to fight us and then we're going to lose all of our stuff and then it's not going to be good, so we're going to have to give them some rights and then maybe help them out a little bit and so yada, 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 yada. So anyways, they decided to come up with a new political kind of role for them, all right? And this role would only be held by plebeians. That way the plebeians could have a say in government. They could make sure that they're not being abused by any kind of rules or anything like that. And it really kind of calmed everything down a little bit. This basically created Rome's triparty government, meaning three parts of the government, which kind of made checks and balances, and each kind of group had its own bit of power that they could do. So the first group that we'll talk about and has to do with the Roman government, one of the parts, is going to be called the magistrates. Now, the magistrates consisted of two kind of groups. All right, it consisted of like different kind of government elected officials, and the two basically ones that were in charge, which were called the consuls. No, I'm not talking about this kind of console, the Xbox 360, PlayStation, whatever you want to call it. Okay, we're not talking about that. All right, we're talking about like kind of president kind of things. They had two of them, which is kind of different than ours because we only have one. Whether you like the guy or not, we have one. All right. So they had two because they figured that, if we have two, then one person won't be as powerful as the other, and we won't even be called a king because there's only one king, and we don't want to be called a king because if we're called a king, then we're going to be ruled by a king, and we don't want to be ruled by a king. So they decided, we'll just have two leaders. It makes it easier. The second part of the Roman government was the Senate, just like how Count Dooku and other Sith Lords say it.
Master Windu. I take it General Grievous has been destroyed then. I must say you're here sooner than expected.
In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you're under arrest, Chancellor.
Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?
The Senate will decide your fate.
I am the Senate.
But anyways, there's my Star Wars geekiness coming out there. Sorry, my bad. But unlike the magistrates, the senators, all right, they got to serve for life, all right, forever.
Forever! Forever! Forever!
But anyways, the idea is these senators, there was 300 of them altogether, all right? And over time, all right, for the most part, at the very beginning, it was mostly all of the patricians, the people that were rich that were in charge. But over time, the very, very wealthy plebeians were actually allowed to join the Senate. The third and last part of the Roman government would have been actually a two-branch system, the assemblies and tribunes. All right? So we'll talk about the first one, the assemblies. So the assemblies, their job, all right, was basically to elect the magistrates. All right? They're kind of like the representatives. The last group that we'll talk about right here is the tribunes. That's the second part of the last part of the government. Now, the tribunes were made up of all plebeians. It's just all plebeians. All the plebs, they're pleb leaders. So the idea is this group right here were elected by the people. Okay, they're elected by the people, by the other plebeians, and obviously not any other people, but the plebeians elected them, right? And the way it worked was majority rule, all right? So they had the power to decide whether things were okay to pass or not okay, all right? So they had a really powerful tool in their belt called the veto, all right? Now, the president actually has this power as well, and it's a pretty big power. But the veto is Latin, all right? It's a Latin word which means I forbid. So now you know some Latin. So whenever someone says, oh, do you know any Latin? You can say, oh, yeah, I got one word for you. Veto. Oh, yeah. All right, so they had a lot of power. They were really, really powerful. And to keep them from abusing their power, they only had 1-year terms. All right, so that allowed the plebeians, if they really didn't like them, to yeet them out of there and say, hey, we're voting someone new. We're voting old Jimmy John over there. He makes the best sandwiches. He's going to be the best leader for us. Fast, fast, quick, fast. So yeah, those are the three kind of parts of the government. All right, so now, how did it feel to be a citizen of Rome? I mean, what would you be doing? What would be kind of like your civic duty when it comes to government as a citizen? Well, there were a few things. All right? First off, in the very, very beginning, only patricians were allowed to vote. All right? Now, I know. Only the rich were allowed to vote. What the heck? What the heck, Mr. Arnold? All right, I get it. All right? Not my call. But you know what? It's okay. Because at 200 BC, they changed that whole thing. They're like, you know what? I think plebeians should be able to vote too. And you know what? They did. Now, not everyone could vote. You had to be a male citizen. All right? If you were a female, I'm sorry, you can't vote. Even if you weren't a citizen, I'm sorry, you can't vote. All right? Two things. But if you were a male, and if you were a citizen, oh, you could vote. So Rome's first kind of laws, all right, way before the laws were even around, all right, and for everyone to see, okay, only the patricians kind of knew what the laws were. And so the plebeians would get in trouble and they'd be like, I don't know why I'm getting in trouble, I don't know the laws. And they're like, well, we know the laws because we make them, did you not pay attention? And so they're just like, you never told us. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, it doesn't matter, you're going to jail. All right? And that wasn't cool. It wasn't cool. All right? So around 450 BC, they finally came up with this idea. Oh, let's make the laws and let's write them down for everyone to see. Mind is blown, right? Mind is blown. So they came up with 12 of the basic laws that they would create, okay? And they put them on bronze tables or tablets, okay? They're called tablets. We call them tablets, but they'd be called tables back then. So they put them up on these. They basically put each rule on a bronze tablet, all right, and posted it in the Roman Forum. So let's move on all the way around, all the way to family life. Let's go. Boom. We're here. Family life. So let's start out with the whammon, as PewDiePie says.
Whammon.
The whammon, all right, their job was to stay at home and, raise the kids and work, all right, from home, like on sewing and stuff like that around the house, right? They really didn't have any rights. They couldn't vote. They couldn't own land, nothing. They didn't have really rights. The kids, on the other hand, were kind of like the kids today. I mean, they had toys. The girls had dolls. They had some pets. They had like dogs. They actually had dogs as pets, as well as birds. However, the difference, and this is a big difference, big difference, is that by the age of 12, the girls could actually get married. And by the age of 16, they are expected to be married. It's a little bit different, a little bit weird, not gonna lie. But that was the whole idea back then. People also lived a lot shorter lives. I mean, they didn't live as long. But the idea is from 12 to 16, if you're a girl, in that time period, you get married. Okay? If you're a dude, it didn't really matter when. You could go later, it's fine. Okay? But the idea was, as well, is that most people didn't go to school. They just didn't. Only the rich could afford a teacher or a tutor. But the idea is all the other kids were at home working and helping out their parents. The next group of people that we will talk about is the slave and foreigners. So there were a ton of slaves in Rome, tons. In fact, it was said that 30% of the population of Rome was composed of slaves. Now, the idea of slaves there, it was pretty cruel. I mean, they would whip them, they would beat them. I mean, they were not treated nicely at all.
Come on down, it's farmer time. Yeah. We got some farmer thoughts with me, Mr. Arnold. So let's say I'm a farmer. I'm wearing my plaid. I'm a farmer today. I'm gonna go make money. Gonna grow some crops, and yeah, that's it. Okay, so let's say I'm a farmer and I'm getting really tired. It's been a long day. I'm tired of growing all these crops. I don't have running water. I don't have a sewer. I don't got any of that. So, they're like, I could just go right over there to the big old city, and then I get all that stuff. Sell all my crops and then sell all my land to the patricians and make all kinds of money. And that's what they did. They're kind of like, okay, we'll go move to the big city, make some money there, and sell all our land. And so the patricians are like, this is a good investment. We're going to buy up all this land, and we're going to make giant farms and make so much money out of it. Just see like little dollar signs in Mr. Krabs' eyes. Ching! Right? And so they're like, oh, yeah, let's do this. And so what happened was, these big, massive farms would be ran by slaves. Not really ran, but they'd be worked by slaves. And the landowners, the patricians, would actually live in Rome and have other people work there for them. And they would never really live on there. They'd sometimes go visit. But they wouldn't really live there, ever. And so after that, and you'd think all these big farms would be able to feed everyone, but they wouldn't. So in order to make sure you have all the food, you had to make sure you had traders. And the traders, all right, were the people that would trade food from other countries or other cities and stuff like that from the Mediterranean.
All right, that is all we have time for today in our video. I hope you guys enjoyed. And lastly, make sure you do your homework. I'm out. Peace.